When you've been around as long as I have, you learn that people judge fast, especially when they think you don't have money. I learned that lesson again the day the Lakeview Estates HOA came knocking on my door, trying to buy what they thought was a rundown shack sitting on their lakefront. Funny thing was, they didn't realize I owned not just the shack, but the entire shoreline they built their fancy homes around. Let me back up. It was 1989. My wife Doris had just retired from teaching, and I'd sold my small construction business. We wanted peace and quiet, somewhere to fish and grow old without hearing traffic. That's when I found it, an old hunting shack on 20 acres by Clearwater Lake. The owner was an older gentleman named Ray who was moving to be near his grandkids. He said the land hadn't been surveyed in decades and the shack needed a little work. The price? $10. I thought he was joking, but he just smiled and said, "If you promise to take care of it, it's yours." So I wrote him a $10 check and we signed the deed at the courthouse. The shack was rough. One room, leaky roof, no plumbing. But I didn't care. The lake was quiet, the woods smelled like pine, and you could see the stars at night. Doris loved it. For 30 years, that place was our getaway. I fixed the roof, added solar panels, even built a little dock by hand. Doris planted wildflowers by the water. We never needed much more than that. Then she passed in 2017. After that, I stopped going for a while. Too many memories. The place sat empty for a few years until the day a certified letter showed up in my mailbox. It was from the Lakeview Estates Homeowners Association. Apparently, a big developer had built a gated community on the other side of the lake, luxury homes, private docks, and a golf course. They were calling it Clearwater Shores. But the catch? My land wrapped all the way around the lake. The HOA's docks, trails, and even part of their boat ramp were sitting on my property. The letter said they wanted to acquire the neglected shack and surrounding land for community improvement purposes. Their offer? $2,500. $2,500 for the same land their million-dollar houses sat beside. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the letter. Next week, a group of them showed up. There were 4 of them, all dressed like they'd just left a country club. The president, a woman named Linda, introduced herself and handed me a brochure. She called my shack an eyesore. Said the HOA wanted to restore harmony to the neighborhood. She offered to take the burden of the land off my hands. I said, "Ma'am, I'm not selling." She frowned like I'd just insulted her. "Well, surely you understand this property doesn't fit the community aesthetic." I just smiled. "I understand just fine." A week later, they tried again, this time with a formal offer for $5,000. I ignored it. A few months later, I got a call from a real estate agent. He asked if I'd be willing to sell my portion of the lake. I asked which portion. He said, "Well, technically all of it." Turns out, when I'd bought that $10 shack all those years ago, the deed included the entire lakefront, about 47 acres stretching around the waterline. The developer must have assumed it was state-owned and never checked. Every dock, trail, and boathouse they'd built sat on land I owned. I called a surveyor to confirm. He said, "Sir, I don't know who messed up, but this entire shoreline is legally yours." I didn't say a word to the HOA. I waited. A few weeks later, they sent another letter, this time threatening to take legal action if I didn't remove my abandoned structure. That's when I sent them a letter, through my lawyer, explaining that not only was my shack perfectly legal, but they were technically trespassing on private property. The next HOA meeting must have been a disaster. I heard from a neighbor that Linda nearly fainted when she realized their boat ramp, the fancy walking path, and half of the lake docks were sitting on my land. Suddenly, the tone changed. Instead of complaints, I got gift baskets, wine, homemade cookies. Linda even stopped by, smiling like we were best friends. She said maybe we could reach a mutual agreement. I told her I'd think about it. What I actually did was hire a new survey team, clean up the property, and file for permits to build a few small cabins. Within a year, I had a tidy little lakeside rental business, shack and shore cabins. Booked solid through summer. Now every time the HOA residents look out at the lake, they see my guests fishing, grilling, and having a great time. All on land the HOA thought belonged to them. Linda tried one last time to buy me out. This time she offered $1 million. I told her the same thing I told her the first day she showed up. Ma home, I'm not selling. These days I sit on my porch in the evenings, listening to the crickets and watching the sun drop behind the water. I still keep that $10 deed framed on my wall. Sometimes I think about Ray, the man who sold it to me. I wonder if he knew what a gift he was giving. The HOA still grumbles about it, but there's not a thing they can do. Funny how a 10 shack turned into a small fortune, and a lesson in not underestimating the quiet guy at the end of the dirt road. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves a good HOA revenge story. You never know. The next shack you laugh at might just be worth a fortune.